Playback Memphis is a performing arts group dedicated to a particular form of improvisational theater. I've been working with them over the last 6 months or so as part of WKNO's participation in the National PBS American Portrait Project. And I'm glad to be here today with Virginia Murphy and Leslie Jones. Virginia is founder and executive director of Playback Memphis, and Leslie is program director for Playback Memphis. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Bard.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with a simple question. What is playback theater?
Yeah, so playback theater, it's a form of improvisational theater in which people from the audience share true stories, reflections, moments from their lives, and we have a team of actors and musicians that bring that story to life. So it's all done really in the service of building empathy, of sharing kind of a practice of deep and generous listening, and a practice of witnessing. So coming together to reflect on our lives, what's rich and wonderful, also what's complex and painful, and to embody that. That's the practice of playback theater.
Tell me a little bit about how Playback Memphis came into existence.
I was introduced to playback theater in my graduate studies in drama therapy, and was part of a playback theater company in New York City, where I met my husband. And when we had our first son, who is now 15 years old, we moved back to Memphis, and playback had really been an integral part of our lives. It had brought such a richness and was a practice and tool that we didn't want to live without, and we felt like that we wanted to plant seeds and build a playback theater company in Memphis, and so we did.
Leslie, how did you come to Playback Memphis?
Well, I started in college. I have a classical theater background, and I had studied overseas. I studied Shakespeare, and that training was such a rich training to me. I had wanted to explore what other career opportunities, what other things were available within the industry that didn't involve always being in front of a camera. And that was just a little deeper, that touched hearts. And so I was introduced to drama therapy overseas. And when I came back to the States, I was looking for drama therapists, and I couldn't find many. And I was offered a job opportunity in Memphis. And I had not heard of Playback Memphis, but I did a Google search and found Playback Memphis. And it was in the earlier days of one of their programs, the Performing the Peace program. And I knew, I read about Virginia, her bio, and I said, wow, I have really got to connect with this group, because they were checking all the boxes, because I was interested in acting. I was interested in connecting with people and community. And I just instantly, there was an energy there. And so I try to use this word lightly. I stalked her a little bit, even calling her, trying to connect. And eventually I was invited to be a part of the ensemble, the professional ensemble.
I'm looking at your bio. You're being modest. You received your acting training from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, she's extraordinary.
Where are you from originally?
I was actually born in Charleston, South Carolina. I was raised in Fort Valley, Georgia. Fort Valley is a very small town, but has a big HBCU and a bus factory. And I was a small town girl, going to all these big cities, wanting big opportunities. and I didn't want to stop. So when I saw Playback Memphis, when I discovered it, I knew that's where I needed to be at that time.
I think one of the extraordinary things about Playback Memphis is you do performances that are sort of for a general audience that, in the theater at First Congo, people will come and, it's just their Saturday night out theater event. But you also do very specific sessions that have more of a healing, a specific community function where you're going into a place where people have emotions about things that have happened in their neighborhood, about things that are happening in their life, and the therapeutic, the healing aspect of it assumes a more primary role. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I think I would say that really, if we are doing our work with the deepest integrity and artistic excellence in any context, which we always aspire to do, that playback is inherently healing. And so, whether you're experiencing that at our public performance, Memphis Matters at Theater South, which you referenced, or in a Community Matters partnership performance, as an example, this last year we engaged a group of survivors of intimate partner violence through the Memphis Area Women's Council. And in any context in which, we are sharing this practice of courageously kind of tending our inner lives and sharing that with one another, there is a healing that happens that people express, and also a deep learning, and that we hope that then ripples out beyond when you are actually in the theater or in whatever small room we're sharing playback with, that there's something that it teaches us about, how we can see ourselves and one another in ways that lead to, just more connection and kindness and truth too. I think playback is about helping us to face and see some things that are difficult and painful in ourselves and one another, but doing that in a way that just honors our humanity, our shared humanity. So, Leslie, you might have some things to add to that.
It just made me think of, go back to my connection with the impact and spirit of playback theater, because I remember studying as an actress, and how I would have to really study other characters, other people's lives, other people's stories, and I had trouble really reflecting on my own story through that. And so, as an actress, it just elevated the level of how I would produce and how I would reflect on the characters, the different stories, because they're real stories. When you're acting, when you're studying in theater or television, they're real stories, even though they're written and you don't know the character, they're real. Playback theater puts it in 3D, brings the community stories and just makes it a little bit more tangible for you. And so I was closer, instead of trying to reach out and explore and find a person's compassion, or find or connect with how they love someone, right in the room with someone from the community's story. I'm with them. I'm with that compassion. I'm with that joy. I'm with how they love someone. And it's very different experience. It is transformational. As an artist, it's transformational.
As an audience member, I think one of the things I value about the theatrical experience is when you don't know what you're going to get. And this, I mean, it's sometimes it's very hard to have an experience, to set yourself up for an experience where you don't know what's going to happen. Playback Memphis is a great experience for that particular quality.
And that speaks, Bard. I read this quote this week that I just loved. Knowledge, if knowledge is power, the knowing what you don't know is wisdom. And that just spoke to me so deeply, because I think in the practice of playback, we really recognize that the magic happens when we come into this practice of listening, really from this space of opening and not knowing. And so there is a way in which, we're trained to listen with this particular quality of receptivity and of kind of like getting out of the way. And this knowing that, whatever the teller is sharing, there's, what they're sharing, and then there's the space all around what they're sharing. There's what the audience is experiencing. There's so many layers of truth and kind of like peel back the onion realities. And so our job is to listen to all of that and to give something back that allows the person that shared to see something in a new or fresh way, that we want people to have insights, and yet we don't want to be, we're not there like teaching people what they should think. But we hope that the practice kind of expresses this, the value of being curious about, our own lives and our own experience, and just creating a sense of, a spaciousness to perhaps, like see things in new ways.
I wanted to talk about your apprentice ensemble and your youth ensemble and how those fit into your larger missions. I think those are both very exciting programs.
One of the things that we really value about our ensemble is that it includes individuals who were introduced to our work through Performing the Piece, which is a program launched in 2014. And at that time, we brought together, partnering with a reentry program called Lifeline to Success, we brought together individuals who've been impacted by the criminal legal system, formerly incarcerated individuals, and they learned the art of playback theater alongside Memphis police officers. And so this was a program that invited people to into an experience of personal growth and transformation, really looking at how the impact of historical collective trauma of racism, and through the art of playback theater, building authentic relationships, so that would then ripple out and not only transform, individuals, but also transform the systems that they are a part of, recognizing that in many ways, it's the systems that have created harm. And so out of this small work grew work that we've been engaged in the last few years, delivering cultural humility and empathic listening training at the Academy for the police department, and then also launching some school-based work to engage young people in sharing the practice of playback theater, because our apprentice ensemble members, those who have been formerly incarcerated, felt that if they had been introduced to the practice of playback theater, that perhaps it could have been something that could really help them in difficult moments in their lives and perhaps change the trajectory of their lives. So it's really beautiful that out of this small work has grown, these initiatives that came from the vision of the participants.
Leslie, you have worked closely with the Youth Ensemble.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So the Youth Ensemble was formed from the Be the Peace School program. After the young people that we work with, which are fifth graders, we work with them throughout the school year. We offered a camp. I think it was about 2018, our first summer camp. And we invited the fifth graders who had gone through our program and were about to pass on to the sixth grade to attend the summer camp. And our first year, we got about 20 up to 25 members, camp members. And it's 1 week. And we use the art of playback theater. And we give them time to reflect. I thought about the camp as a time for them to, it seemed like a really like a youth spot, to be honest. Because I had never really seen anything that had given young people opportunities to just think about themselves, and how they relate to other people as individuals, and just giving them confidence, giving them a voice. Do you like this? Do you want to do this? They don't get those opportunities a lot, unfortunately. And so it just gave them the room to find themselves as sixth graders, as leaders, as mentors, future mentors. And so from that camp, the sixth graders, we still stayed in contact with them. And they still wanted to be a part. They still wanted to perform. They still wanted to be active and stay connected. And so we had the idea to form a youth ensemble, which would give them the opportunity to perform twice a year. We have a Fraser Matters performance within a year, where we go right into the community and they perform for the within the community and their neighborhood and their loved ones and friends. And we go on enrichment outings. We have check-ins. When the pandemic happened, we had a very hard time connecting because we couldn't see them in person. Of course, that's the only way we were able to engage them before. And we knew that we needed to stay connected. The members have gone through a lot of inequities, education, resource within the communities. And so we started doing check-ins, checking in with the parents, checking in with the youth members, just to get their feedback, get their thoughts. And since we started that, we did a summer camp last year. We did a writing competition. I mean, we have done some in-person check-ins. We did a film. It's been a lot of, I guess, bubbles burst, because there were things that we didn't know that were possible in a pandemic, and so it's brought us closer, and we're looking forward to continuing that work in the space that we're in, and moving forward unapologetically with our youth voices. A lot of our young people now were part of the pilot group when we first started, and so they're about to be in ninth grade next year. And so we're going to have a leadership camp with our youth ensemble with those members this summer, to help them, to train them into burgeoning leaders so that they can mentor other young Be the Piecers when they come in after the pandemic is over.
I think a good way to think about it too is that playback is kind of the medium for really delivering a lot of other powerful training. And so when the young people are learning the art of playback theater, they're learning the art of self expression, self reflection, learning the art of listening. They're learning the art of paying attention in really specific ways to other people's feelings and imagining what it's like to walk in other people's shoes. So there's relationship skills that they're developing. So it really strengthens social emotional learning, and it's so rich. And I loved, there was the sweet video that we made about our camp, and a question at the end, what is what did you learn? And one of our campers said, well, what I learned most was to love myself. And for me, that is the heart of playback theater. To support people in being kinder to themselves and one another.
Now, we've talked about the pandemic a little bit. Obviously, all performing arts groups were hit with a lot of challenges on how to do their work. For a group that is so, where audience participation, audience interaction is so essential to the form, that must have seemed like it would be a big challenge. How did you approach the pandemic challenge as an organization?
Of course, we had the same reaction everyone else did. But as we begin to trust, as Virginia said, I felt that we were called to this time, that really called to this time. We had to get to that point and recognize it, but we were called. We were already doing a lot of the work and the training and the connecting and research and reading and reflecting, and we just had to do it in a different space. And so that when working with the youth, I I had to translate that into, I had to carry that over into that work and just trust. In the beginning, some of my youth members did not have internet. Some of them did not have devices. Some of the phone numbers changed. Some of the, and I just had to trust. I had to trust that the connection that we built, and the relationships, the bridges that we already built were there. It was still there, and just believe. And sometimes I did that with my eyes closed, hands out in front of me. But I just trusted, and we were blessed to have I'm blessed to have a community of people within Playback, to be with me and join me. And we've been successful so far.
Yeah, and I think one thing we haven't named is that we have, 12 extraordinary artists.
Oof,
Our
yes.
artists are really the heart of this work. So many just gifted and talented human beings who bring their personhood to this work in the most generous, beautiful way. And I think we all consider the practice of playback to be essential to growing us as human beings. I mean, we are very, very, very growth oriented, very committed to building a rich culture of learning. And, our mission is to bring stories to life in a safe space to unlock healing and transformation and joy. And, that requires us to have a commitment in our own lives, to how we we do that for ourselves and one another. And so many of us have been doing this for over 10 years. which is really extraordinary. We're recognizing we're old, but it's exciting because we're going to be soon really out there looking to grow our ensemble. And so I think we're all getting really excited about that and recognizing, oh, there, who's not with us, because we're always about widening our circle. And so it's a season of reflecting about that and about imagining, the next generation of Playback Memphis.
Virginia, Leslie, I've really valued the chance to talk with you, to work with you. I'm really impressed with the work that you all do with Playback Memphis, and I cannot wait till we can do in-person live theater again.
Yeah, us too. Thank you so much
Yes.
for the opportunity to be a part of the American Portrait Series project. It really gave us a lot, and so we appreciate your generosity in that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.